It's kind of always been just like a slow process for me because I'm only 18 now. I mean, I've obviously found this passion that I want to do for the rest of my life, but I understand that it's not going to come immediately and you need to put in a lot of hard work and hours to get there. And I think it's just being aware of that and knowing that like you wouldn't want it any other way. You're doing what you love, and it's just an amazing feeling.
So we met from your coach. Is Hayden still coaching you?
Yes.
Cool. We met through your coach, Hayden Hawks.
Yes.
We were sitting in my sauna in Boulder, and you were like, oh yeah, I live in Santa. We were asking where you live. Oh, I live in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Oh, and Kate was there, and she was like, oh, my aunt and uncle live in Santa Barbara. Long story short, you're like 5 doors down from them. So
I know, yeah.
We're right in your neighborhood today.
Yes.
So this is where you grew up. This is where you're growing up. And it's where you got into running.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, it was actually really funny. I remember we were in Boulder and you kind of like showed me where they were at. And it was like, we just kept zooming in a little more. And I saw like the Westmont College, it's like right over there. And I was like, oh, dang, I probably live like 5 minutes from there. And it's just like one more zoom. It's like, I think that's my neighborhood. Zoom in one more and it's like 5 houses down. So yeah, it was a crazy coincidence, but I'm glad it all worked out. But yeah, like you said, grew up here, born and raised. I'm 18 now. And I've lived basically within like 5 minutes from here, like different houses my entire life, which is where my running career started. I think the first trail I ever went on was Cold Springs Trail. I don't know if you've gone on that one yet, but yeah, it's like 3-4 minutes from here, and I can run there now. But yeah, I think the first time I went on that trail, I was 6 years old. And I think growing up, my parents didn't want me to be on my screens and on my iPad 24/7. And I'm very glad that I was raised that way. And I was essentially growing up, hiking around every single day, just having a blast in the mountains. It was always just about having fun. It was not competition. It wasn't this or that. I was just having a blast. And I think that something that my parents have told me, and it's clear just like from videos and kind of just who I am, is I always had like a lot of energy. So going to the playground for 30 to 40 minutes wouldn't really do it for me. So going up into the mountains kind of just was a natural. So those 10 to 15 minute hikes with my family just to get some energy out kind of expanded into some longer hikes. And, you know, when you're a kid, you just want to run. So it was kind of a mixture between hiking and running. And my dad had been a runner for about 40 years, mostly on roads. And this is probably when I was about 4 or 5 years old. My mom was wanting to just get out on more hikes. And my dad's initial response was that he didn't want to get up into those, you know, dirty mountains. He wanted to just stick to the roads. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. We started going on hikes, and I think I fell in love with it about the same time my dad fell in love with it, which was, yeah, like I was saying, when I was about 8 years old. Yeah, and kind of circling back, those longer hikes became longer runs, and kind of just my dad getting involved with the Santa Barbara trail running community. I was kind of just there like right alongside him the entire time. Yeah, and I think I did my first ultramarathon when I was 9 years old, and that was the Red Rock 50K, which is just right over the freeway. It's over the 154. And the initial response, I don't know if you know Luis Escobar, but he's the race director of the Santa Barbara 9 trails as well. I kind of think of him now as basically my trail running uncle, because he kind of was that race director that allowed me to get indulged into the sport. Because I mean, I can completely understand like the liability side of it with like this little kid going out and running for, you know, 8 hours in the mountains. But I mean, my dad kind of just talked to him, and he knew my dad already. So I kind of just slid into there, and he was like, all right, let's see what this kid's got. So I then ended up doing the Red Rock, had an absolute blast. I mean, I was out there going to the aid stations, eating all the gummy bears, you know, just kind of jogging along. And it was everything a kid could really ask for. You're just running around, playing in the mountains, eating candy. So
I mean, it's anyone could ask for. Anything anyone could ask for, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So you get into it. Lewis allows you to run these races. I have to imagine that, you know, people were shocked that you were out there running these races with them and wondering, you know, was there any negative or any pushback from people seeing you out there? Or was it like truly this is awesome, you can do it?
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing with like, I'm sure you know, and like a lot of people know, the trail running community is got to be one of the most uplifting and supportive communities. So for me, I didn't have social media or anything back then. I was just out there having a good time, and pretty much, if not every single person around me was just like being super supportive and just uplifting me. Yeah, I was just a jolly little kid, you know, having a good time and like
eating gummy bears and
exactly, yeah,
crushing
it's
miles.
Like, it kind of just became like, oh yeah, you know, there's Sebastian, you know, just kind of trotting along. But I mean, over the years, like you always get like, you know, growing up, like kind of just like trolls and like hate here and there, but I never really cared about it. It really like, I feel like I can totally see how that could affect someone, but for some reason for me, it was just like I'm doing my thing. I'm enjoying myself and kind of just blocking everything else out. But yeah, for the most part, everyone was, you know, amazing.
Cool. So you realize you're pretty good at it. At what point did that realization occur?
Like I was saying, like the competition probably only started when I was about 12 or 13. Like the rest of that, I think like kind of the agreement I had with my parents was that it wasn't about the competition. It was just about having fun. And I think that's another huge thing is my parents never pushed me. They was always just like, if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. But I mean, they obviously supported me because they could see that I, you know, was growing a passion for this. Growing up, I also like in elementary school did like AYSO soccer and like played on like the basketball teams and stuff like that. So I was kind of always a competitive person. But I think that fire only really started like probably in middle school, which I did cross country in 7th and 8th grade. But still, even then, with like running cross country, like I was a mountain runner.
Yep.
I'd never run cross country before. I don't like to this day running on roads, and I didn't back then. But that's kind of when the fire started. I think when I got introduced to just like more competition around me, because growing up, I was racing against adults, right? I was the only kid doing these races.
Right.
I mean, there was no one even remotely close. Fast forwarding a little bit here, just like now racing, like it just feels so natural. Because I've been racing against adults my entire life, you know. Now it's just like I'm finally getting to the level where it's like
yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, the competition probably started like middle school, like 13, 14.
So you said something interesting. You said back then it was all about the fun.
Yeah.
Initially, and something that I've realized and something that I've watched a lot of other people learn as they go through their 20s and get into their 30s, both as amateurs or as professional athletes, that the fun component is essential. And whether you're an Olympic athlete or a 7-hour marathoner or a 3-hour marathon or anything in between, like you need to be having fun. Otherwise you have
100%.
to realize what's the point, unless you're CJ Albertson.
Yeah.
He came on this podcast. He was like, I don't like racing or I don't like training. I just like racing. And getting the job done. But it like the process, right? Like it's cliche. I made an Instagram post about it the other day. I did this panel for Puma at the San Francisco Marathon, and I was listening to Molly Seidel and Jenna Prandini and Charlie Lawrence, these athletes who are Olympic athletes or world record holders, and they don't talk about being perfect. They don't talk about mastery. It's riding the waves. It's enjoying the ups and downs and whatnot. Is that something you've thought about? Is something you've been intentional around? How do you have that perspective already?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like growing up, you know, in the sport. It kind of just became like a lifestyle for me. And it was like I was saying, like back then it was always about fun. Like I should have corrected myself. It's always been about fun. Like that's what
I was inferring.
Yeah, I love everything about running. I love, you know, the fueling aspect of it. I love that there's so many, like there's a depth to ultra running, and it's not just about the running. And as far as just like the process of training in general, I've learned a lot from my coach Hayden about the process, and he's kind of just showed me that it's an extremely important factor is just like embracing and enjoying the process, because you know, you see everyone line up at Western States and, you know, put out some amazing efforts, but there's just so much time and energy put to getting to that point.